South Africa. This is a Kasi Legacy podcast. Our guest today is Mr. Miles Bhudu, the entrepreneur and the unionist and a philanthropist. Baba Miles, welcome.
Thank you for having me,
Yeah,
Diale.
it's been a long time.
Yes, I was in
Yeah,
exile.
yeah, you are in.
Exile, not exile.
Yeah, inside.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's within the country.
Sure.
Yeah. So, your movement, where did it all start?
Well, it started in 1987 when I was in prison myself at Modabi prison.
Yes.
You must be reminded that I was arrested and charged for what was then called huisbraak met die opset om te steel en diefstal.
Yeah, en dan geef je 7 jaar.
6,5 jaar.
Yeah.
Oh,
So sorry for interruption. Your motivation to start this union.
Look, when I was in prison, I'm by nature and professionally, I'm a laboratory technician,
Okay.
laboratorium technicus.
Yeah.
I worked at Cecil too. I started there as a laboratory assistant and then as a laboratory analyst.
Yeah.
And then I had to be promoted after I completed a 3.5-year diploma in analytical chemistry, and then I became a laboratory technician. So I was fired after I've completed my studies because I became more revolutionary. I became more, they call it, destructive.
Yes.
I was fighting for the rights of my black brothers who had the same qualifications,
Yes.
but could not be allowed to enter the laboratory to do any analysis on petroleum samples.
Yeah.
They were called upon to go and collect some of the raw materials in the plant.
Yeah.
And because me being classified as another colored or an other colored under clearling, I had the privilege then to work and wear a white overall with Indians and white guys.
Oh, yes.
So the hatred started there, but before I even ended up in that laboratory, I was just against all the other things that was tantamount to oppression, discrimination, and degradation. So after finishing my studies, the reason why they decided to let me go and do further studies was to try and silence me.
Okay.
But it worked the other way around.
All right.
I became even more rebellious after I'm finished with my studies.
So, but within the space, we hear that you wanted to be a teacher before.
Well, you see, those days there wasn't this thing called a guidance, study guidance.
Yeah.
Where you were guided from an early age in your secondary school career to be guided until you finish your matric, because those days we were talking about matrics. Now they talk about grade 12.
Yes.
There were no proper study guidance. And one ended up following the crowd.
Yeah.
That's why I ended up doing math, science, biology, Afrikaans, and Engels, and history.
So we're sitting in our living rooms. Suddenly there is this row out there on the televisions. There's a gentleman with chains on. How did it start? What motivated that?
Well, when I was released from prison, I promised my fellow inmates that I was not going to leave the struggle that we started at Modabi lying.
Yes.
And by the way, the establishment of the South African Prisoners Organization for Human Rights came as a result of the last Delmas trialists that were Mkhonto Sizwe, political detainees that were held also in Modabi, but in a different section.
Okay.
They encouraged us to form a structure that was going to infiltrate and neutralize prison gangsterism and prison gang activities. That is how this whole South African Prisoners Organization for Human Rights started. And we didn't know where to start. They then threw us with the ANC constitution and said, guys, you can read and write, you can plagiarize the constitution and make it along the lines of prisoners' rights. That is how this whole thing started. And I still do have those original documents where we plagiarized the ANC constitution and turned it into a prisoners' rights organization And when I was released, it was then registered as a non-profit organization up to today.
So, fast forward to now, how is your organization doing right now, and how do you reach out to the president? Do you have an access to the president and all that?
No. There's a saddest part of it.
Yeah.
Be reminded that I was released in 1991,
Yes.
and there is a document that is still recycled. They call it a revolving document.
Yes.
Nowadays, they would call it a trending document,
Yes.
entitled the Recognition and Procedural Agreement that we wanted with the Department of Correctional Services. It was never accepted, even up to today, because those who were and are still in charge would say to them, look, the moment you allow this organization of Miles Bhudu to get recognition, we will lose our grip on these human beings, and we would in fact be in trouble all the time, because this is the most corrupt department one can get within the establishment.
So you are saying there are people who wanted to bring your organization down?
Yes, of course. I mean, I can, at the top of my head, talk about the Gayton Mackenzies and the Kenny Kunenas, because these guys, when they were in prison, they were very close to this organization when they were doing time in Grootfontein. We used to leave everything in the office when they called to listen to what they have to say.
Yes.
And then Gayton got released first. And then he started coming with tendencies that was counter-revolutionary, listen to you, then want to take your ideas and make it his ideas. And that is where I realized that I'm not going to be a very good friend of Gayton Mackenzie. And ultimately it happened that he went around, jellied himself into the high-level politicians, and Kenny was released, and they went around discrediting me, bad-mouthing me, gossiping me about me and my organization, and the rest is history.
So, but along those lines, they might say, give us the proof.
Proof.
Yes.
The proof is in the pudding.
Yes.
Even up to today, Gayton don't want to have anything to do with me. I suggested to him the other day that, listen here, you would get more votes from people who are behind bars, sentenced and unsentenced prisoners, ex-prisoners, ex-awaiting trials. Those are out on bail, their relatives. If you can create a desk within the Patriotic Alliance and let me run the desk, because sentenced and unsentenced prisoners are potential voters. And then he went on social media, how powerful and influential he is, even if it comes to prisoners, far above the Miles Bhudus of this world, because he's got deep pockets and he's rubbing shoulders with a monopoly capitalist, with those who are the captains of industry and those who have access to monopoly.
So would you say our prison systems, within our prison systems, there's corruption there? Because now guys like him don't want to come to such interviews. Would you say inside prison there's too much corruption there?
Well, if I had an opportunity, or the authority, I was going to call it the Department of Corruptional Services, until the corruption is rooted out in this department.
So, with that thinking in mind, don't you think people like you will never get to be heard by public in terms of the knowledge that they have to expose? Now, how do you survive now? Because for me, it appears that you've been dragged to the mud. People are trying to tarnish your name. How do you survive?
Look, what we need to do is, we are 30 years in arrears. We should have started day one after 1994 to educate, to agitate, to conscientize, to lobby community and make them to understand that those who commit crimes will be arrested someday. They might get away the first time, they might get away the second time, but they will be arrested, because we have moved away from the slogan that says crime doesn't pay. Crime doesn't pay fools. But what we are saying now is there isn't a perfect crime, let alone a perfect murder. Now, developed and civilized countries, communities are educated about crimes and criminals long before the crime gets committed. And if the crime is committed, you have fallen along the wayside, you go through the system, you go to prison for redemption, education, training, skills development, you get rehabilitated and you get prepared for reintegration. And when the reintegration happens, there is monitoring, evaluation, and supervision projects. This country should have started 30 years ago to do what I'm talking about, but it never was taken seriously because it comes from Miles Bhudu, who in fact took a vow that I shall not be corrupted, I shall not be concocted, and I shall not be captured.
So somebody might say, watching this podcast might say, Mr. Miles Bhudu is an angry person, or Mr. Miles Bhudu also has got his skeletons, like the matter of Mr. Monty, the extra chap. Maybe it's time you just lay it bare. Then let's take it from there.
Well, look, Miles Bhudu is angry constructively.
Yes.
I don't know whether you have ever heard of somebody who is angry but constructively.
Constructively, yes.
That is focused, that is mean,
Yes.
that is daring
Yes.
to let the truth and justice prevail. You see, I have become a lone ranger, almost 30 years in a democracy.
But you're still here.
Because I decided to stay on the right side of the law, walk the narrow and the tight, and never take a no for an answer. You know, I can go anywhere in the world. I'll speak my mind. I write what I like and say what I want because I know I ain't got no skeletons. And those who have decided to keep quiet, muzzle themselves, silence themselves, it's because they've got skeletons and dirty linen in the laundry.
Okay. Within the space, did anybody try to bribe you to push an ideology or say something that it was against your principles?
Thank you very much for that question.
Yes.
It's a very intriguing and interesting question.
Yes.
You know, in the year 2000,
Yes.
I was approached by Busasa
Yes.
that has pulled the biggest prison heist ever in this country. Because Busasa was in a process of capturing and privatizing prison kitchens, they targeted the big five, the biggest prisons in the five of them. Norderby, Joburg, Pretoria is now called Hosimampuru II, Paulsmoor, St. Albans, and also that's a sixth one, Westville. They said to me, Miles, look, now that you are so active and fighting for the rights of sentenced and unsentenced prisoners, and you are popular, you're always on TV. If you are not in an interview and talking a lot of sense, you are in the middle of the street, you know, dragging chains. How about you coming on board whilst we are busy with the tender? Whenever you appear on TV and whenever you are interviewed on radio or you write a statement, do not forget to add Busasa as one of the institutions that would, when they have privatized the kitchen, that prisoners would start to get their appropriate ration according to the book. They would start to eat food with the nutrition, with the protein, and so on. And when that happens, there will be less gangsterism in prison, there will be less fights, less arrogance and confrontation, and prisoners might think not to escape easily from prison because they would have the best meals in the country.
Can you divulge the names of the people who were trying to bribe you on that direction from Busasa?
Well, there's a guy called Ish. And Ish, and the spokesperson, I just forgot their name.
Yes.
And one guy that was also a legal, responsible for legal matters.
Yes.
Well, we can Google them.
Yes.
And I once met with Agrisi.
Yeah, Mr. Agrisi himself.
Yeah, and we had a chat, but he didn't want to have a lot of communication with me because he has, from where he was, he has picked up what kind of person I am. Because when we meet or when we met in the boardroom, I used to speak my mind. I used to be very robust and against some stuff that they wanted to do. I mean, they promised me 50,000 rands a month in a brown envelope. I said to them, look, that was in the 2000.
Which year was that?
In 2000.
Yeah.
I said, look, you can take that money and put it into your corporate social responsibility budget. We will send a generic and a narrative funding proposal, and then you can fund projects within the organization, and then we can make you popular from where I'm sitting, because the monies that you are going to fund us would be monies that we were going to use for education, training, skills development, rehabilitation, and reintegration of offenders. Then they said, oh, Miles, you talk too much English. Go and prepare this generic and narrative funding proposal.
Yeah.
I did that.
Yeah.
And I did it, and it took me almost 6 weeks,
Okay.
having to talk to consultants and people who know how to draft proposals. And when I returned there, they went through this thing. They said, no, Miles, get out of here. Then I said, no, but look, guys, I have spent time, and you have to give me at least something so that I pay the guys that assist me, like the consultants, to put together this proposal.
Did they give you money to pay those people?
No, they called the security, and I was dragged out there and kicked out and thrown out of this.
So what happened to these people who you're supposed to pay? What did you do?
Well, I had to explain to them like I'm explaining to you.
Yes.
And they were not surprised
Sorry.
because I've asked them to do it voluntarily.
Okay.
You understand?
So basically, you've been pushed aside for the principles that you stand for.
Look, the people that corrupted Ibusasa,
Yes.
you know, were people who I can say, and publicly, without any fear of retribution for reprisals.
Yes.
There's a guy called Vinnie Peterson,
Yes.
who was the Director General of Sports with Ngonde Balfour.
Yes.
And when Ngonde Balfour was promoted to be a Minister of Correctional Services,
Yes.
he called this guy to come and work with him as a National Commissioner. And when that guy got there, he started to dig about the corruption in Busasa. And not long thereafter, he died very quickly, very fast, and even up to today, his family is very, very suspicious that he was assassinated. And you ask me, I would say, if not, why not?
Yeah, it's some truth when you tell it. It rattles certain people out there.
And then, by the way, we made a submission to the Zondo Commission to go and talk about what I'm telling you.
Zondo himself, Mr. Zondo himself.
Yes.
The commission, yeah.
Yes. We received only an acknowledgement of our intention to come and make a submission.
So you never put through.
I were never called in there because I wanted to talk about many other things that needs to be known before I go to the other planet.
So, but now in that space, Mr. Miles, there's a risk of your life if you start throwing names around. Don't you fear for your life, Mr.
Well, someday we will have to die, man.
Yeah.
And I'm prepared to die, even I die young and grow old in my grave.
Yeah.
I will have died not with my mouth shut, but with my mouth loud open, speaking truth to power, to justice and authority, without any fear of retribution for reprisals.
Okay, we are still on Kasi Legacy podcast. We celebrate the life and the times of our legend, Mr. Miles Bhudu. Telling it as it is. Right now, there's still more questions for you, Mr. Miles.
You're welcome.
We are now moving forward to check. Yeah, so Mr. Miles, I would like us to talk about your community involvement because I see here you are in a community that is, it's a beautiful place actually. So what is your community involvement at present and what are your political aspirations going forward? Can you talk about that?
Well, here in El Dorado Park, I'm not so much involved in some activity programs and projects. Originally, I'm from Nigel.
Yes.
They call it the countryside,
Okay.
where I was born on the lakeside.
Okay.
It's about 97 km from here. That is where my activism started, where I was born. Here in El Dorado Park, I've taken a backseat. You won't see me physically at some of these campaigns.
Yes. How do you access the service or be part of the service if you're not there physically?
Well, we are trending. There is social media. That's WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, cell phones, so on. I now and then go to activities when MMCs and ministers come here, and I record. Most of the time, I've got a camera. I record some of the
Do
events.
they invite you? Do they invite you?
No,
Or
they
you
don't.
just go there.
I just go there. They won't invite me for
Yeah.
reasons which they know and which I'm not interested, because I've been seen as a counter-revolutionary, and I've been seen being an anti-ANC demagogue.
Mr. Miles, with me, it sounds like you have so much information that needs to be put out there. Have you been given a platform? Have you been to one of these forums that have been formed to calling people to come and talk about what they know?
No, they don't do that unless I decide to go and gate crash. I mean, I became very strategic. I've got a video camera, two cameras, and I take photos, I interview people on the spot, and I download those materials.
Were you not on Chelsea?
Well, the TRC, I was there when I was still a very young man. I made a submission there, and whilst I was presenting my submission, one former political prisoner who didn't have a liking in me said to me, "But Miles, seemingly you are at the wrong address. The mandate of this TRC was to deal with human rights atrocities for those who were in prison for politically motivated crimes." And Advocate Ntsebeza had...
At what capacity were you there?
I was there as the president of the South African Prisoners Organization for Human Rights.
Representing these other guys.
Yes.
Okay.
And the other thing is, before you even get a platform to make your presentation, you make a submission. And after they've gone through the submission, they then are satisfied that you would be coming to the right address. And I could find it very interesting why this former political prisoner wants to embarrass me. I had to be saved by Advocate Ntsebeza, who said, no, please, you can't do this to Miles Bhudu, because he'd made a submission, we went through the submission, and we were satisfied that what he says there is going to be relevant to the history of this country.
So what I pick up from whatever you're saying is that in this country where you stood up, you fought for the prisoners' rights, you are not well recognized, you are not well accoladed in terms of what you've been doing. Have you been given any award in this country?
No, it's very interesting. Thank you for that question, because our struggle, is based, or the fundamental foundation of our struggle was long before there was a constitution.
Yes.
Remember, it was established in 1986.
Yes.
Long before there was a constitution that acknowledges and recognizes the rights of prisoners.
Yes.
In according chapter 2 of the Bill of Rights, section 35, subsection 2. We lived far ahead of our times, knowing that one day when the country is liberated, there will be such a thing as rights for those who find themselves on the wrong side of the law, And that is how we as an organization has grown, and that is why I remain so stubborn, because our fight is based on what the Bill of Rights says.
So now, if I may come to now, presently, in prisons presently, are the prisoners enjoying the rights that you as your organization were fighting for?
Well, prisoners don't even know that they've got a right.
Yes.
It is making a mockery, not only out of
so how do you consult? Because I remember you said you cannot go in, and in social media, these guys inside there, the government is now refusing them to access gadgets. The issue till now recently, when we heard that people are rebelling to say, but we need our gadgets because some of us were going to school. How do you access these people?
Well, you know what? Apartheid was there, and it was fought for years.
Yes.
And apartheid is taken off the status books. That is the struggle that we are involved into. Someday, it might not be in my lifetime. These gadgets, cell phones and laptops would be allowed and would be legalized and would be constitutionalized. It's not as if it doesn't happen in democracies that are matured and democracies that are civilized.
But people must say it's risky to give a prisoner a cell phone, because what we see on social media from prison is not.
Well, 20 years ago,
Yeah.
we raised what you are now raising and what the community raised. And they had almost 20 years, 15 years, 10 years. As early as 5 years, they had an opportunity to come with strategies, to come with tactics, to come with... Technology is advancing by the day. How to intercept, how
Monitor
to
all that.
monitor,
Yes,
block
yes,
some of these things, and how to conscientize and educate prisoners that, look, this gadget, if you use it because you want to further your criminal activities, you're going down, my brother.
So would you say we're lacking capacity in our prison systems?
Not only capacity, we lack incompetency. And it didn't come out of our own making. The only thing is that we are in denialism, that we are not only incompetent, we are lazy, we are exhausted, we are aggressive, we are arrogant, and we are confrontational. Now, I can at least do something with somebody who says, I'm incompetent, I'm not educated, not out
Yes.
of my own making. But if you are that and you are still confrontational, there's nothing one can do for you.
Yeah, because now presently there's been an outcry of cartel deployment and issues of parole and all that stuff. Can you talk about the parole system of the country? What's your take on that one?
The parole system is flawed because the administration of the Department of Correctional Services is messed up. You've got a CMC, a committee inside prison, that must make sure that before you meet the parole board, they have prepared you. They have written reports that will be either against you being recommended for placement or parole. You need people who are loyal to their work to be able to write these reports, objectively. You need officers that is not only loyal to their work in the Department of Correctional Services, you need officers that are loyal to the country and just do the right thing. I mean, the parole board, people who are supposed to take decisions are corrupt. They ended up extorting monies from prisoners' relatives who got deep pockets to either recommend you for parole or to either release you on correctional supervision.
Yeah.
We've got a particular case now where a person was arrested, he was charged, he was released on parole as a parolee, and he got arrested. He was charged, and when he appeared in front of the court of law, he was acquitted. And still the Department of Correctional Services reapprehended him.
Would you attest that to a failure within our states to create an environment that is conducive for people like yourself to give guidance and light, a failure to develop structures within their prison systems that will enable the prisons to function normally? And on that, I want us to talk about how is it possible that a person gets paroled now, but they say they'll come out next year? I'm talking about the case of Oscar Pistorius.
Okay, Oscar Pistorius, his stay in prison is long overdue. But if he took a fool's advice during his case, he should have been released by now. He should have been accepted even by the victims and community members at large if he only spoke the truth. The truth is yet to be told. But he never took the fool's advice. We said as an organization, Oscar, like Mdu said in one of his hit CDs,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, we said to him, look,
it's bad now.
it's bad. What you must do, go and hand yourself over.
Yes.
Go for a plea,
Yes.
a bargaining plea, because it's legal.
Yes.
To say, look, I have committed the crime. This is what really happened. And tell us the truth. And with that, he was going to save millions of his hard-earned money.
Yes.
He was going to go to prison, still being a millionaire, and use some of his hard-earned money to educate, to make a contribution towards the betterment of his fellow inmates. But he took his millions and let the scavengers get away with it. His senior counsels, the best person of the land.
In terms of access for people like you in prisons, and in terms of management. Can you talk again about it?
Well, to start with, we've been struggling since my release from prison to get a recognition and procedural agreement with the Department of Correctional Services. It's a document that is recycled. It's a revolving document. It's trending. Why we wanted and still want to get a recognition from the Department of Correctional Services. Like you have the employer and employee have this recognition procedural agreement. It's been rejected ever since. I'm not talking about now that the Lamulas are here.
So would you say prison is politicized?
Of course, yes, because the Minister of Correctional Services, all of them are politicians.
Oh, yes.
They've been deployed there. The deputy ministers are politicians. We are told that the National Commissioner is supposed to be a civil servant. They are also politicized. The entire prison department is politicized. And you will get it from people like us, because I was released in 1991. It's almost 34 years ago, and I'm still singing the same old song. While saying this, we must make it also clear to our community members, Kuti, prison is not a holiday.
Yes.
Prison is not a holiday resort. Lento ukuthi ejele kwagogo.
Yeah, kuyaziwa.
Mfowethu yazini. Hamba wena uzozibonela, you understand?
Yeah, I get you.
Having said that though, when we fight crime and people get arrested, charged and prosecuted, we must not forget about the victims of crime and violence.
Yes. I wanted to come to that one.
That is very quiet. The rights of victims, and that is regardless of the fact that there is a document called the Victims' Rights Charter that should have been constitutionalized by now.
So now, with the crime that is spiraling out within our country, there are people out there who are calling for a hangman to be banned. They want people to be hanged for their heinous crimes they commit within our society, especially with femicide and cash-in heist and murder that occurs, especially when they're hijacking cars. Would you say we must hang them?
Well, I'm not going to go the Gator Mackenzie route, because that's a very popular electioneering foofy. You understand?
Yes.
Before you even think about introducing or reintroducing the death penalty, you must deal with the causes of crime. Okay, because people were not born criminals. And let me tell you what is going to happen. With the criminal justice system in this mess that it is, people will be hanged left, right, and center, and found out after many years that they've hanged the wrong people. First, get your country organized. Get your politics organized. Get your criminal justice system organized.
When you say country organized, can you elaborate on that one?
Get politicians who are loyal to the country to serve the interest of their people. You know what apartheid did?
Yes.
The apartheid architects did whatever they did at our expense to take care of their own people. Whatever they did was for the benefit of their people.
Not for everyone.
At our expense.
Yes.
You see, I thought democracy was going to do the same, but not at the expense of white people. Without the expense of white people, I thought they were going to let black people in this country get the services they deserve, the respect and the dignity. You know what happened instead? We got bogged up with an ANC apartheid democracy.
So you're saying no to hangman?
No. I mean,
but somebody out there would say to you, hey man, look around, man. People are dying, man, every day because of these violent crimes that we're experiencing in the country.
You see, we should have long time ago make sure that this country doesn't spiral into the criminal state it is.
Okay.
It's almost 30 years. You're going to open the borders and people come here who are illegal, undocumented, and these people end up influencing South Africans who never knew anything about hijacking, never knew anything about these heinous crimes, where you threw spikes on the freeway and then thereafter murder the people.
When you say these people, are we talking about foreign nationals?
Well, foreign nationals...
Because that might sound like it's xenophobic.
It's fine. It's constructive.
That's what they call it here in South Africa.
It's constructive xenophobic or Afrophobic. People come here in this country. We don't know about wars. We were never even involved in any cold civil war. The people that cross and come here comes from countries which are ridden with all sort of wars. And some of them come here being former child soldiers. You understand?
So would you say we take this matter and push it to the states? The states is not uh, it's not consistent in terms of dealing with crime in our country.
Look, the people who are in power here since the dawn of our democracy have joined the struggle because they didn't want to remain poor.
Yeah.
You understand? They have taken the eye off the ball. For them was, look, it is now our time to eat. And they don't stop eating. And there are very few of them who are very, very upset of what is happening. But because they are there with them, we all cook them in the same pot.
Yeah, but people who went to exile, people who were in the struggle in the 80s, would say not all of us. It's just that it happened, we were exposed to money in this country
Yes.
and our families were in poverty. And then by the time we thought we were just taking a little, but we ended up taking a lot. What did you say to that?
Well, that is when you had a choice.
Yeah.
You know, it is your choice. It doesn't mean that you are not educated, you are incompetent, you don't have a choice. You know, this thing that money talks and
Bullshit
it
walks.
walks.
Yeah.
We say nowadays, when money talks, greed listens, and it listens
Yeah.
thoroughly. Understand?
Yes.
We never had access since the dawn of whatever our forebears. Never had access to such a lot of resources, such a lot of finances, such a lot of money, and all of a sudden, boom! Here
Yes,
is it,
man. Yeah.
and then you may bro.
So crime in this country and prison systems and the country itself, it will never come to grips with reality of being of functioning well based on the corrupt people. Because we hear that even the president himself has been saying corruption is killing this country. Do you think he's doing enough?
Look, there isn't a will. I don't want to say there isn't a political will. There
Yeah.
isn't just a South African citizen will of those who are in charge to bring an end to this malfeasance. There isn't, because there is no consequence management.
Consequence management.
People are telling you, even those who have been cornered,
Yes.
mentioned and named and fingered
Yes.
at the Zondo Commission, they tell you that they would never end up in prison. Because if I have to end up in prison that has been implicated and fingered,
Yes.
I will have to open the floodgates. And when I open the floodgates, you might you might fall on your back, because even maybe the number one would be said, why don't we go to prison with him? Because he was there. He was part of this racket and syndicate.
Yes. So we're still chilling with Mr. Miles, and we are talking conversation. We are having a conversation that builds and gives us the way forward. We are proud of him because he played his role as a South African. Although he went through hurdles and challenges, we believe that out there maybe there's somebody who can redeem the situation and give him the opportunity that he deserves as a South African. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ikasi Podcast. We are chilling with Clement Diale. Thank you. We are still sitting with Mr. Miles Bhudu, a legend himself in our country's politics, and we are also celebrating him, his lives and time in the country. You celebrate a person as a pillar. You don't wait for them to pass on and then you say, I knew that person. So we are having that opportunity to celebrate him. Once again, we're still with Ubabu Miles Bhudu. How are you, sir?
I'm fine in
How
yourself.
are you holding up?
No, thank you for the opportunity, man. It's a long time coming.
Yeah. So, do you still have opportunities that comes your way in this day and age? Because, like now, when you came in, you were on the interview with Power FM.
Yeah, well, there are radio stations that has gagged me personally, because
Yes.
there's this rumor that has been doing its rounds that I'm running a one-man show. I'm
Okay.
a one-man band. And they
Yes.
do not realize that what I say, 165,000 sentenced and unsentenced prisoners. Listen, the moment I come on radio, The moment I come on TV, because they've got
Yes.
TV inside, the
Yeah.
whole Department of Correctional Services becomes so quiet. Even when a nail falls on the ground, you can hear it.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the subscriptions in terms of your prisoners. Do you have the list of the names of the prisoners that you're representing?
Well, that was going to be a reality if we had Lentele Gutwe recognition and procedural
Oh, that
agreement.
one they denied you.
Yes. Look,
Okay.
the right of association is a constitutional right.
Yeah.
And if we had politicians that were not about themselves and their ego,
Yes.
they should have by now worked out a situation and a system where our members will be going to be used to make sure that the policies and the mandate of the Department of Correctional Services is fully executed and practiced in our
So you're
centers.
saying you pigeonholed because you stand for the truth.
Yes.
And what did you do to fight that back? To say, no, man, yes, you are gagging me, you are pigeonholing me, but I need to say these things.
It's because of the calling.
Mhm.
This is not a career or a profession,
Yes.
it's a calling.
Mm.
And you cannot keep a good man down
Yes.
because I tell the truth. And it is so fabulous when you tell the truth. You don't have to think twice
Yeah.
and double
It's
talk.
so, you know what? I looked at the recent issues in terms of the happenings in the correctional systems whereby there were escapes and stories, and I was looking around to check your presence, because in situations like this you have a knowledge of the prison systems, you have a knowledge of how the administrative works there. I was thinking maybe I would see you being interviewed, so it comes back to this thing of saying you have been pigeonholed. I was saying all these people are closing you up.
Look, we've got a South African Broadcasting Corporation, which is
Yes,
the biggest.
and it's a
Bro-
public thing.
yes.
Yes.
And they have been told long time ago and given instructions to keep Miles Bhudu away from the broadcast airwaves.
You must have done something big for these people not to want to, eh?
It's because they cannot buy me. I'm un
Abakufuni labantu.
yes,
Abakufuni.
they cannot capture me. I'm
Wingos.
uncapturable.
You're dangerous.
You understand?
Yes.
And instead of coming to me and say, Miles, look, there are many other Miles Budus outside here.
Yes.
Why don't you awaken them and
Yes.
assist us to deal with the legacy which the prison department of
Yes.
apartheid left behind? But they won't
Yes.
do that. It is jealousy, it is envy, and it is gossiping and rumor mongering, dropping of names,
Yeah.
and peddling political influence.
So, 2023, 2024, we're going to elections. Are you voting?
Well, in fact, to date,
Mm.
we don't have any information whether the Department of Correctional Services has gone to prison to make sure that each and every sentenced prisoner has got an ID. All we know is that if you don't have an ID, you won't be able to register. And if you want to register and you don't have an ID with you, you must pop out anything between 80 to 110 rands to get a temporary ID.
So, when we had the last elections, how were you? How was the matter communicated to you so that you can communicate it to the prisoner?
Well, we went to court,
Oh,
and I mean, prisoners do have a right to vote,
you
whether
went
they're
to
sentenced.
court.
Yeah, we went to court, but we went very late there because we wanted the court must come to our rescue,
Okay.
and we went there requesting for a prayer that
Yes.
each and every sentenced and unsentenced prisoner must register, whether you have your ID with you or not. The only person that could not register was a person that could have been identified as a foreign national.
So did the court? Did you win that court case?
Well, the court told me that you came a little bit too late because it was a few months before the elections. They said to me, okay, look, for the next elections in 5 years' time, prepare yourself.
Did you prepare yourself?
I didn't.
That's coming.
I didn't.
From minus.
Yeah.
So what's up?
It,
What's up?
it, I mean, I spoke with the attorneys that assisted us pro bono, free
Yes,
of charge,
yes.
and they lost interest.
Oh, it's true. It's true.
And
It's
I
understandable.
mean, the Caton Mackenzies who has deep pockets, the jubs and so on, they should have at least joined this struggle.
So are you saying as we speak, hence that people were registering to vote? Are you saying that movement is not happening within the prison system?
Well, we haven't heard anything.
Or is there no other organizations or any party that is handling the matter?
Well, I keep on calling on Gayton McKenzie to say, look, if you want votes, hardcore votes.
Do you speak to him direct?
Well, he don't talk to me.
Or he just...
Yeah, I sent him some stuff, and then the only time when he responded to me through a text is when they recommended that Ellen Busak's name must be used to replace Louis Botha Avenue.
Oh, yeah.
And then...
Louis Botha Avenue, the one in Cape Town or the one in Johannesburg?
The one in Johannesburg.
Okay.
They wanted as a PA that Ellen Busak's name must replace Louis Botha.
Okay.
But a day or two thereafter, he ended up going publicly supporting the Israelis in this genocide and massacre that they're busy. Well, that's not a war. It's a massacre. And then Ellen Busak pulled out. But when he pulled out, you must listen to that podcast. Then I sent him that podcast. Of course, he had a copy of it. And then I said something. It's the only time that he responded via text.
Yeah, but somebody would say, in your case, there was an allegation that you helped an Israelite hitman to escape this country and his prison. And you might say that's hypocritical coming from him.
You know what?
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Did you do that?
No, I think I'm going to. No, I didn't do that.
Yes.
Because if I did it, it was going to be done in a manner that was going to be so professional, so particular. Because of Valento Gutwa Ekasi, Tulamsin.
Yeah, but who's the guy's name again?
Morty Sawacht.
Yeah, from Israel.
Yeah, he was sentenced to 13 months for being illegal in the country and has entered the country with falsified documents. That is how he ended up in prison. And it was done.
So he was an agent, actually, of Israel.
Well, he was a hitman of the Mossad mafia, and he got upset because they fetched him, they gave him the job, and they started to ill-treat him, although he was doing an excellent job for the Israeli mafia here. And then he revolted and rised against the way he was treated. And there was an intention to take him out because he knew too much. And then he retaliated.
So all these people, you spoke with them when they were in jail, face to face?
Well,
Abu, the gentleman, Lowe Mossad, and all these guys, Abu Keitans and all these guys.
Well, Morty Sabah was on trial for almost 2 years in a previous matter, which he was acquitted. Okay, he was arrested for the murder of the son of the godfather of the Mossad, out of self-defense. Okay,
where in South Africa?
In South Africa.
In Israel?
In South Africa, they wanted to assassinate him. So the son and two most wanted criminals that was on the first 5 list of wanted criminals in the world went with the son of the godfather of the Mossad to where he stays in Bramley. He overpowered them and ended up shooting and killing the son of the godfather.
Sure. Hey.
He handed himself over.
Yeah.
And the following day, when after the incident, he went to the police station, Bramley police station. He reported the murder. They took the firearm and told him to come back the following day. When he got
They
back,
never put him in the cells?
No. He came there and said, look, this is what I did. And the police went there and they witnessed what happened. They collect the cops, and he was told to come back the following day. The following day when he went there, the entire violent crime squad and unit was there, and he was arrested.
So kahle Sure. information, and then very dangerous.
Mfowethu
So
yazini
they don't want you. Abakufuni.
no mamela la mfowethu
Yeah.
ngikhula ekasi
Sure.
ngi-out yasekasi
Yeah.
and maybe ngizobholela la ikasi
As
ngoba
well.
ngi-very safe mina la ikasi.
Yeah.
Khumbula uma ngihambe ngiyohlala le endaweni eziphezulu
Ish.
bakangishaya ekuseni ngovivi
Yeah.
phela lana ngeke ungenzi net uyabona ukuthi ngihlala emagrillini
Yeah.
uma undlula futhi la ubona
Yeah.
amagreli
Yeah.
akunanet efihliwe la.
The more you talk about these things, because now I believe maybe from now on there will be a plat- platform to be created
Yes.
of you talking these things. Again, I'm going to ask you this question: are you not afraid for your life?
No, 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 no. I've gone past that stage.
Yeah.
You know, when I was in prison, I was called a troublemaker
Okay.
because we started activism whilst I was in prison, being arrested for what they called a common crime.
Yeah.
I'm still, even up to now, called a common criminal. And for me, it is needed.
Your record was not expunged.
It was expunged in 2007,
Yes.
and I was released in 1991.
Yes.
And I was so busy all those years that I
Oh.
even forgot that I must expunge this thing.
Yeah, okay.
And it got expunged within a month because I went on TV talking about people who's got previous criminal records with the representatives of the Department of Justice.
Yes.
And then 2-3 days thereafter, I went to Pretoria, fill in the necessary application forms, tick the right boxes, signed on the dotted lines, and within a month, my criminal record was expunged.
So, where do you see the direction of the country going with all the challenges that we're having? Because now, as I said earlier, they want us to vote next year. We are going to vote, but your take, where do you see us going, and what role can you play, and how can you motivate people to do right?
Look, a vote is your voice. And I would encourage each and every South African to register and vote. I'm not going to dictate to anyone who you must vote
Yes, which is
for.
true. Yeah.
But if you don't vote, you are disempowering yourself, and then you have nothing to say. You know, at least if you vote, and even if your vote is lost or it is a vote that went astray, at least you have made your mark, because to vote, people died for years, people
Yeah,
fought
yeah,
for
yeah.
centuries. You
Yes.
know, it's unfortunate that we've got such a lot of political parties, and some of them are not in it for the sake of transforming the country and make the country a better world to stay in. They are in there because they've got bills to pay. They are in there because they are, in fact, they see this as a career
Mina,
and
I
make
thought,
business.
Mina, I thought, Guti, now that there's been a judgment that independent candidates can stand, I thought you were gonna stand to represent the challenges that you're talking about, so that we can have a solution, And I'm looking at it, but then I picked up something there, is that the way they put it, it is not in a proper manner. It is that system that pushes you back to organizations, because if you're standing alone as independent, it costs a lot, man.
Look at the independent thing. It is done properly and the way it is supposed to be done in countries like Finland,
Yes,
countries like Switzerland,
yes.
and it is a long time coming voting system.
Mhm.
It's unfortunate that this independent format of voting, some of us, the majority of us, who remain criminalized. I'm not saying we are
Yeah,
criminals,
we remain criminalized. Yes, I get
criminalized,
you.
and when we,
Yeah,
we must work on a project to decriminalize the black mind.
yeah, yeah.
Has used it now as a weaponized instrument to make money and to get rich quick overnight.
Yeah, but there will be someone out there who's saying, why should I vote for these politicians? Why should I go vote? Because even if you can look just behind there in the city of Joburg, they've been chopping and changing leaders there, and then it's been the parties in courts fighting for positions, while the services that they're supposed to render to the people are not taking place. What would you say to that person? Say, no, this next year I'm not voting because these people are criminals. And what would you say to them?
Look, what I would say is that I would remind South Africans that many, many years ago, during the heydays of Van Zyl Slabbert,
Yeah.
who in fact introduced what we now come to witness. Now, if he was taken seriously, may his soul rest in peace, and this independent format of voting was done 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, we should have been now at a stage where we would understand that standing as an independent is not about you, yourself, your family, and your close and distant friends, because that is in fact what these people has with long before this thing get implemented. They have turned it into trying to make a quick buck. Independence.
But somebody might say, uh, still talking about those voters, they might say, yes, you guys, you say you want to be independent, but with the coalition system that is happening in our country, the same small fish might end up being drawn into going to coalition just to oust a certain party because people want power. It's more about power,
Yes.
less about the people.
You know, you must have heard of kingmakers.
Yes,
You've
yes,
got very few members, let alone supporters, sympathizers, and admirers.
yes,
And then you become a kingmaker,
yes,
and then you take decisions on your feet
yeah,
without consulting with your small Nyana constituency.
yes,
That is why this whole thing of independence has turned into a political mockery.
yes, yes, yes. Do you have a I want to put it so that it's become clear. Do you, do you have confidence in the ANC-led government?
Well, the ANC I knew,
Yeah.
it is not the ANC of nowadays.
Okay.
You see,
Bashintshile la bantu.
it is the money
Yeah.
and the love of money.
Yes.
But as I said earlier on, when money talks,
Yeah.
greed listens.
Yes.
They've lost it.
Yeah.
And the reason why they've lost it, it is greed. And greed builds more greed. And they have sold the country for a few pieces of scrap metal. It's a disgust, my bro. It's a fallacy, and it is making a mockery out of a heart and democracy.
Yay. No, thank you, Babu Miles, for giving us this opportunity to speak to you at Ikasi Legacy podcast. We are excited. We are proud. You gave us this opportunity. We're sitting with Babu Miles. Babu Miles was telling us about his journey in this country, the good things he did for prisoners and for communities. And we are proud to have you. We're celebrating you while you're still alive. Thank you, Bob Miles. And may God bless you, give you good health for you and your family, and then encourage you also not to give up. Be part of the bigger picture of this country. There are people in this country who need you. Thank you very much, Bob Miles.
Thank you, my bro.
You're welcome, my
Genala.
brother. You're welcome.
Ah,
You're
sisonke.
welcome. Yeah,
Yo,
this is Kasi
sisonke,
Legacy
bro.
podcast. We are leaving you with these words. Please do your best to play a role in this country and make this country a better place. Today we're celebrating Obama Miles, a legend himself. Thank you and goodbye.